In 2016, a Spanish church paid someone $8,000 to restore a 500-year-old statue. 3 weeks later, they paid $37,000 to undo what that person did. And even after spending all that money, experts admitted they'd lost parts of the original forever. This isn't a story about vandalism or theft. This is about something far more common and far more terrifying. Good intentions mixed with zero expertise, and it happens way more often than you think. The Church of San Miguel de Estella sits in Navarre, northern Spain. Nothing fancy. Small town, old building, the kind of place tourists drive past without stopping. But inside, they had this statue of St. George, the legendary dragon slayer, carved sometime around 1520. Renaissance craftsmanship, polychrome wood, which means it was hand-painted with layers of natural pigments. For 5 centuries, this thing just existed, survived everything. Sure, the paint was cracking, the colors had faded, it looked old. But that's what made it real. That weathered look wasn't damage, it was proof. Proof that this statue had stood through wars, revolutions, plagues, and everything else history threw at it. Then in 2016, someone decided it needed a touch-up. Big mistake. Here's what you need to understand about professional art restoration. It's not painting. It's not arts and crafts. It's basically archaeological surgery. Real conservators spend years learning how to work with historical materials. They use infrared cameras to see beneath layers of paint, chemical analysis to identify original pigments. Every action is documented, photographed, reversible. Why? Because once you destroy the original, it's gone forever. So when this church decided their statue needed restoration, they should have called experts. Instead, they hired a local art teacher, someone who taught crafts classes, zero training in historical conservation, and they paid her $6,000 to work on a priceless Renaissance artifact that's less than a used Honda Civic for a 500-year-old masterpiece. A few weeks pass, the job is done. Time for the big reveal. And, oh God, St. George now looks like a Fisher-Price action figure. His face is bright pink, eyes bulging, expression shocked, like he just got his credit card bill. The horse looks like it belongs on a carousel at a failing shopping mall. The details that made it look ancient, gone. Painted over with flat, bright, lifeless colors. It's not restoration, it's obliteration with a smile. The photos hit the internet and the world collectively lost its mind. Twitter exploded. Reddit went nuclear. Spain's done it again. From Renaissance masterpiece to Happy Meal toy. St. George looks more shocked than the dragon he's supposed to be killing. And that comment about Spain's done it again, that's important. Because 4 years earlier, in 2012, Spain gave us Potato Jesus, that infamous botched fresco where an old lady turned a painting of Christ into a furry blob. But here's the difference. Potato Jesus was an amateur working alone, unpaid, trying to help her local church. This was commissioned, paid for, by people who should have known better. The backlash was swift and merciless. Art historians were furious. The Spanish government launched investigations. Cultural heritage organizations called it cultural vandalism. Both the church and the company that hired the teacher were fined $6,000 each. But fines don't bring back history. That statue had centuries of original paint, pigments mixed by hand in the 1500s, natural aging, oxidation, the subtle color shifts that only time can create. All of it was buried under layers of cheap acrylic paint. And here's the nightmare. Removing that new paint meant removing some of the original too. You can't just peel it off like a sticker. Paint bonds. It seeps. It destroys. So the church had a choice. Live with the meme or pay again. They chose to pay. This time, they hired actual professionals. Real conservators with degrees and credentials. The team spent 3 months working microscopic miracles, chemical solvents, magnification tools, prayers to every saint in the book, trying to remove the disaster without destroying what little original material remained underneath. The cost? $33,000. Add it all up, $8,000 to destroy it, $37,000 to fix it. Total cost of this nightmare? for a statue that didn't need any of this in the first place. After 3 months of expert restoration, Carlos Martinez Alava, head of Navarre's Historic Heritage Department, made a devastating statement. Today, the statue has the same colors it had before last year's extremely unfortunate intervention. But we know that we've lost part of the original paint along the way. Translation: we saved it, but we couldn't save all of it. Some of those 16th century pigments gone forever. The natural aging process that took 500 years to develop, erased. You can match colors, you can recreate the look, you can make it seem authentic, but you can't bring back materials that no longer exist. You can't recreate the hand of an anonymous Renaissance artist who's been dead for 400 years. St. George survived the Spanish Inquisition, he survived Napoleon's invasion, he survived 2 world wars, but he couldn't survive 3 weeks with someone who had no idea what they were doing. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to talk about. Europe is full of dying churches sitting on top of priceless art. Attendance is collapsing. Donations have dried up. Roofs are leaking. Walls are crumbling. But inside these forgotten buildings are statues, paintings, altarpieces worth millions. Artifacts that belong in climate-controlled museums but instead sit in damp, rural churches visited by nobody. When something needs restoration, these churches face an impossible choice. Pay $100,000 for professional conservation they can't afford, or hire someone local for a fraction of the cost. Guess which one they choose? And that's how you get disasters. Spain's had dozens of these. Botched frescoes in Valencia, ruined altarpieces in Asturias, statues emerging from restoration looking like department store mannequins. It's not malice, it's not even stupidity, it's broke institutions making desperate decisions, and history pays the price. St. George still stands in that church today. He looks noble again, battle-ready, heroic, but he's not the same, and everyone knows it. The experts did their best, they really did, but some things, once lost, can never be recovered. And that's the real tragedy here. Not the memes, not the mockery, not even the money. It's the quiet knowledge that we destroyed something irreplaceable because we were too cheap to do it right. So next time you hear about a restoration project at some small church or museum, ask one question: who's doing the work? Because the answer matters more than you think. If this story made you angry, sad, or just completely baffled, you're in good company. Hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into art history's biggest disasters and scandals. And tell me in the comments, should there be jail time for destroying cultural heritage? Or are these just tragic accidents in a broken system? Let's talk about it. See you next time.